And this week we're joined by special guest Trey Moats, who is an Android developer. We're joined by returning guest Dan Charlton, who is an Android kernel developer. And another returning guest, also a kernel developer, Francisco Franco. And another returning guest, Jeffrey Burrow, who is the MIUI Dev founder. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being on the show. So, Scott, this week, what are we going to talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about a couple devices getting updates as well as phones getting released. We're also going to be going into some nitty-gritty about some patent wars that have recently arose. And we're going to be talking about some CyanogenMod stuff that we're talking about Jelly Bean and kind of the future of CyanogenMod. And then we're going to be going into more depth about some Jelly Bean features. And then we're going to have a discussion about whether or not you should root your phone. To root or not to root? That is the question. So first we're going to start off with some device news. The Galaxy S3 is available today, July 6th, on AT&T. So if you haven't gone out to get your S3 yet, or if you're listening to this right now and you wanted to get an S3, you should probably go. And it will be available July 10th, so that's this Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday on Verizon. Also, the HTC Droid Incredible 4G LTE will be available on Verizon for $149.99 with a 2-year contract.
Now, the Droid Incredible 4G, part of me loves that phone because the original Android phone I had was the original HTC Incredible. So I love that phone. So I have a lot of nostalgia towards that line of devices. And I look at it, it reminds me of it, the case, and everything. It looks like it would be a great device. But I guess it was supposed to be the HTC One S on the inside and maybe, the Incredible on the outside. But it's not. It is not that at all. No. And I don't know why.
The headed bastard stepchild of the One S. They completely just destroyed the One S. The One S is a gorgeous, gorgeous phone, and what they did to the Incredible 4G is blasphemy.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that, because were they trying to stick within the lines of what was successful in the past or something?
That's what it seems like, because it looks exactly it looks exactly like the Incredible 2, right?
Yeah. So I
think Verizon was the problem. I mean, they downclocked the CPU for no apparent reason. They dropped the ImageSense standalone image processing unit,
which
for
is amazing.
No apparent reason. Like, it's still a decent device with a great processor. And I would say that, I would get it if I had Verizon and was looking for a new phone, and I'd probably still get it before the S3. That has more to do with my level of Qualcomm, but I don't think it's a bad device. It's just hamstrung compared to the comparable HTC devices like in that class.
Yeah. So why did they do that, Trey?
I think it's a money thing. Verizon's probably the problem, and if you can skimp on already cheap hardware, pad that bottom line a little bit. Let's sell it at the price that we were going to, but let's only pay like 60% of the original cost of the device to build it.
Yeah, HTC needs balls, though. They need to say we're not going to release this crap.
Yeah, and again, HTC doesn't have the kind of clout that Samsung does to be able to do that.
But the thing is, they need to start trying, because their profits have gone down 57%.
Exactly.
So they need to try something ballsy.
To be fair, that's compared to a year ago this quarter when they shattered their previous revenue records.
Agreed.
How are they doing on Sprint?
They are still making money. Let's not pretend like they're just some woebegone research in motion. But yeah, that's not good for them.
Well, how's HTC doing on Sprint? The Evo seems to be fairly profitable on that line.
I would assume so. The original Evo was one of the most popular Android devices ever.
But
Yeah, HTC devices in general have been very nice with Sprint, or Sprint has been very nice to them in offering a lot of their devices. So they've had a good relationship, and I think that relationship needs to somewhat expand.
Sprint just doesn't have the users, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the problem.
As far as subscribers go, I think Verizon has the most, or there's AT&T.
It's Verizon, then AT&T, then Sprint, then T-Mobile.
Yeah, so and Verizon's old school telecom, right? So you got to
So
move
is AT&T.
Verizon. Verizon's not going after HTC. You know, Samsung. I don't know how they bullied Verizon into allowing them to call that phone the Galaxy S3.
Although, have you heard the rumors that the Verizon Galaxy S3 is not unlockable?
Are you serious? I did not hear that.
That is the rumor.
Yeah, I read about
Apparently
that.
all of the root and unlock methods that worked for the AT&T and T-Mobile and Sprint versions
I did not hear
do
that.
not work on the Verizon version.
So,
This is still, I mean, this is still very early. It hasn't actually shipped yet. Just a couple of people have gotten it early. So this could be, you know, users not knowing what they're doing, reporting things that are inaccurate before real developers get their hands on them. But
Well, this is not unprecedented. I mean, look at the Sony Ericsson Play phone, the PlayStation phone. In Europe, you know, Sony released here, you can unlock it, and you try to do it on Verizon, oh, that's not happening.
Well, you know that phone's a world phone, and Verizon refused to allow it. It's got a SIM slot, and they won't enable it.
yep.
Wait, is it the same hardware with just like some different programming on some chip somewhere?
Like literally, you could. I think you could just modify phone APK and get world mode going.
Wow.
so
Yeah, no, Verizon and AT&T, as much as AT&T's CEO wants to blame Google, it's Verizon and AT&T that are standing in the way of upgrades and standing in the way of quality devices.
So what phone would you get, Dan? Would you get the Galaxy S3, or would
Or the
you get
Incredible?
the Incredible?
Oh, I'd get the Incredible in a heartbeat.
I know now, Francisco. I know you're across the pond and you don't have any experience with Verizon, but what about you? What would you get?
I have the Galaxy S3, no doubt. I would get it
There
again.
you go.
Yeah, but you have the one with the quad-core Exynos.
But your version has a crate. Come on,
Yeah, even better, I know, right?
2 gigas of RAM. Come on.
That too.
And Jeff, what would you get? The Incredible or the Galaxy S3?
So anyone who's known me for a long time knows that I used to hate giant screens. I used to just scream about them. But I think 4 inches now is way too small. So I would actually have to go with the S3. If that phone was a 4.3-inch screen like the 1S, then I would totally get the Incredible.
How about you, Scott? Do you like something that's 4 inches, or do you need something bigger?
When you say it like that, well,
Like what?
I
Go
personally
big or go home.
I personally believe that a 4-inch is too small, a 4.3 is too small. I think we're moving on to the 4.5 plus generation. Now I know that the average user isn't going to necessarily agree with that, but the thing is, once they use a phone that's 4.5 and above, they're never going to want a smaller screen, ever. They're going to realize, hey, I can do so much more with this screen, and they're never going to go back.
I agree. Now, Trey, what would you like?
I'm so in love with my current device, so it'd have to be a hypothetical if I did not have it, I guess. And the decision would honestly come down to me which device is unlockable. And if both of them are completely locked down tight, then I'm just going to get pissed off and pay my contract cancellation and move on to another carrier. And I literally will toss LTE out the window for a device that I can control. I mean, that's how strongly I feel about it.
Interesting. Would you go all the way back to 2G?
No, absolutely not.
I'm
T-Mobile
out of your way at this point to go back to 2G.
I'm just wondering how much your controllable device is worth to you.
Well, on the subject of screen, I've got to complain about my phone. The Galaxy Nexus, it looks wonderful. The size of it's fantastic. But the size of it, and I have long guitar player, piano player fingers, I get annoyed to have to, it's almost a struggle sometimes for me to reach up to the notification panel, or to reach down to slide it up, or to reach over and press back. It's a real pain. So I think that there's like a magic sweet spot where it looks nice, but maybe it's not perfect with the hands. So you come down with it.
Yep. It's a
Do
beautiful
not read
device.
more into that than what should be read into it.
All right, so let's talk about the Nexus 7 here for a few minutes. It's the craze right now going around the world. We had some news about the Nexus 7 come out this week. Ship date rumors such as maybe according to Sprint at least it might ship here in a few days as early as the 12th, sometime between the 12th and the 17th. So that's what Sprint's website, or not Sprint.
Staples.
That's what Staples' website said. So we'll see if that pans out or not. If it does, people could start receiving them as early as the 13th. Who knows? Then we had some sad news come out that at least the versions that people were getting at I/O, multiple people were reporting some image ghosting. Now, what that means is if you turn the brightness up the whole way to maximum 100%, and you open up an image and leave it on there for 30 seconds or so, and then you go to a completely different screen, maybe from an image to a black screen, then you would slightly see almost like it faded into the screen. The image ghosting. Yeah, so you see this sometimes on TVs or LCDs of lesser quality and so forth. So a lot of people were complaining about that. So then again, a lot of people said that they can't reproduce it. So is it an issue that happens from time to time? Is it a hardware issue? Can it be fixed by software?
I think it's a problem with IPS technology. I've read it a few days ago. That might be it. Some people has it, some people doesn't.
I also read somewhere that it might be the devices that have the white backing. It might just be those devices that are...
That seems unrelated, like having a white back and having an issue with your display are totally unrelated.
Well, it could make sense in this context that maybe the white model was an afterthought, right? And so they made them a bit later, and the batch that they used has some flaws.
That could be.
Flaws emerging later in your manufacturing are
You
really bad. If you haven't gotten it right at that point, you're just going to make them worse and worse and worse every time you pull a new batch.
Well, it's kind of reminiscent of the Galaxy Nexus where people were reporting problems with banding due to the AMOLEDs the way they do if you turn the brightness down, and some were worse than others. I think, I think it's an issue with the technology, and just some are affected and some are not.
Yeah.
No. Some Galaxy Nexus have one screen, others have some other revisions of the screen. I think there are like 3 or 4, 5 different versions of the screen.
So that applies across all like GSM or CDMA models then? Kind of the same thing?
No idea.
I guess we'll find out when
the versions on the kernel, so.
That's really what it boils down to. Once more people start getting them, besides the 6,000 or so that that got it already, we'll start seeing if it is more prevalent or not, and hopefully it's not. But you know what? Even if it is, I don't care. It's $200. Are you expecting gold for $200?
It's an unbelievable device for that price point.
Exactly. Yeah. All the power that's packed into that thing and everything that can do for $200. Yeah, you might have something that isn't 100% perfect, but it costs $200. If you want something that doesn't have that, go out and spend $600. So, I'm still getting it. That's not going to stop me from getting it. That's not going to stop me from recommending anybody out there on the planet to get it. So now moving on with some more Nexus 7 news. So if you wanted to buy a case, they're sold out. The Play Store is right now. But have no fear. Today, Asus announced that they have us covered on Twitter. They announced 6 colorful cases. Multiple colors. There's a light blue, a yellow, an orange, a pink, black, brown. So you have a whole slew of choices here in the near future. No information on when they're going to be available, prices or anything like that. But hey, we saw a picture of it, so yeah, that's good news. Paul O'Brien from Modico released an app, I believe yesterday or today. It's a camera app for the Nexus 7. So if you weren't aware, the Nexus 7 doesn't have a rear-facing camera. It only has a front-facing camera. So, you can use Hangouts, like we're doing right now. So you can video conference.
And I really appreciate that, to be honest with you, no back camera. I just do.
Yeah, well, you do appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it because it annoys me. Why the frick would you hold up a tablet to take a picture?
It looks retarded. I mean, no offense to...
You know what? And you know what? All of us have phones in our pockets too. So if we really want to take a picture, we'll pull it out.
It just looks silly.
But
I mean, and I would argue that people trying to take quality photos don't need to do it on a phone anyway. But a tablet,
That too.
pull your phone out.
So just possible use case here. When you're in a hangout or something, you kind of want to, if you want to like show, like I travel a lot, right? So I like to show my wife like the hotel room, the view, or something like that. I don't want to like turn the tablet around and like wonder if I'm getting exactly. So it is nice to have that. When I do travel, I have my zoom, I have my rear camera, and I'm just kind of like showing around, and I can see exactly what I'm broadcasting to my wife.
That's
I mean, it's not very important, but it's not a reason to put a camera in there. But I mean, how much does the camera cost? Like $2 or $3.
Well, does the Nexus 7 have a USB port that you could theoretically hook up a webcam to?
It has a micro USB.
So maybe somebody could do some hacking magic and make a webcam for it.
So what did Paul Bryan do? He released a camera app that you can now take pictures of yourself and videos of yourself. So those are the likes of Paris Hilton and so forth. People that want to do that can now do that. Or people that have little kids, that they want to sit there and the kids want to take pictures of themselves. But you know what? My son's not playing with my Nexus 7. He's getting my Acer Iconia A500 tablet. And
Why can't I get your Acer tablet?
Well, it's right here. You can come pick it up, right?
I'm coming now.
All right, we'll see you in a day when you get here. But so a lot of people said, this is great. There's a camera app, yay. But you know what? If you want it, you want it. You don't, you don't. I think that hit or miss depends on what you want it for.
Yeah.
And then getting closer to what we're going to talk about, if you're a root user, you can change the UI. Now the Nexus 7 has a blown-up phone UI. It looks like a phone. As we know, there is a tablet UI which is different from the phone UI in Android, but it doesn't have that. So some people, figured they could tinker around, change a few settings and whatnot, and boom, you have tablet mode on the Nexus 7. You just edit your build.prop, change the LCD density settings, and voila, there you go. So that's what they did. So if you're into that, you can go ahead and do that. That is available. Which, moving on into Jelly Bean, there was 2 videos released this week. Did you guys watch that, of all the different things that you could do with voice search? There was the first one had like over 40, and the second one had 20. Some guy, I forget his name, from Canada, from the Great North, posted them earlier, and coincidentally enough, he was following me on Google Plus, and I immediately circled him back and put him in my "You're Awesome" circle because those videos were amazing. He basically did what most of us have already done, sit there and ask all sorts of questions about what can you do, and he got a card and an answer, a voice response for every single one. It just really showcased what the technology could do, and the videos became viral. I really enjoyed them. So if you haven't checked them out, I definitely say to go do that. They're definitely very cool, and if you're curious about what voice actions can do compared to the competitor, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, you'll get to see. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, and there were definitely some other videos that surfaced of Apple iOS versus Galaxy Nexus running on Jelly Bean. And those were very interesting. Do you want to go into depth about the differences between them?
Speed.
I thought it was like a night and day difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that briefly last week. I did it with a coworker. I put Siri and voice actions side by side and said some things, and instantly voice search, I'm sorry. It was originally called voice actions, I guess. But voice search, returned my responses immediately, where Siri, I don't know what she did. She ran around the block and then she answered. But yeah, it's night and day.
Now, one question: the person that you had that had Siri, were they on a Wi-Fi network with you, or were they on their data connection?
Hey, I make sure that when I do my tests, I do them right. I made sure she connected to Wi-Fi. She wasn't
Okay.
at first. And I said, all right, you need to connect to Wi-Fi if I'm going to do this test right. I did it right. I did it right. So let's talk about patent wars. And we got to be civil, because I'm sure that most of us are angry about this or have a lot to say about this. All week long here on the internet, on Google Plus at least, and even on Twitter, it's been, boycott Apple this and boycott Apple that. We've seen a lot of funny pictures, heard a lot of funny stories. We've probably even shed a few tears and maybe even punched a wall or two. Basically, the Galaxy Nexus, most of this week, actually it's available right now technically, but most of the week there was a preliminary injunction against it over the universal search function. And that is the ability to, whenever you pick up your phone and you have a little search bar, search app, however you get to it, you start typing something in. For example, you type in, Instagram. So you type in INST, and then boom, you see a result of, the Instagram app on your phone, and you see also, maybe Instagram.com. So you have a choice, right? Well, apparently Apple says that they own that. You can't do that, and we, as Galaxy Nexus users, are going to have that functionality removed that's if they win. If they win, and have that functionality removed to where whenever I would type Instagram, it would just show me Instagram.com. It wouldn't show me the app. It would just tell it's a web search. It's not a local search. So we'll see if that passes or not. Right now, though, the Galaxy Nexus is technically available in the U.S. because why, Dan? We were talking about that earlier. What happened?
The temporary injunction was temporarily suspended.
Yeah. Now that's until Apple comes back and says yes, you can temporarily do that.
Not quite. So the temporary injunction was issued by a district court judge, I think it's Lucy Coe. And basically she said that there's reasonable belief that Samsung is infringing on this range of patents that Apple is asserting. And so based on that, she issued this temporary injunction pending the final trial and the results of that, which could turn into a permanent injunction or, nothing at all. So between now and said trial, it's supposed to be enjoined and not allowed to be sold. Samsung obviously appealed, and this was the news earlier in the week, was that appeal got rejected, but not really. Basically what they did was they filed an appeal and then requested Judge Coe, the same Judge Coe, lift her own injunction while they waited for the results of the appeal. She said no. Not really surprising that she upheld her own decision 2 days later. The appellate court, however, came back today and said Samsung is issuing a strong enough argument that either, nobody's actually seen the arguments that were submitted yet, but it has to be something that either Samsung is not infringing at all, or a strong enough argument that the patents in question aren't likely to hold up to any scrutiny. And so the appellate court has lifted the temporary injunction pending Apple's response to Samsung's filing, and then the court's decision on those filings. At which point, then the court will sort of issue the results of the appeal, and either the injunction will get appealed entirely, or it will get put back in place and go back to the lesser court.
Now,
what I'm having an issue with is the fact that, as far as I know, Samsung had nothing to do with
any of the software on the device.
Yeah, I mean, they just built the hardware.
Yep.
So I'm not sure exactly how Samsung is supposed to be liable for something that belongs to Google.
Can you put another operating system on that Samsung right out of the store?
No.
There's your answer. They are 100% liable because that device ships with and only runs Android.
So yeah, I mean it's a shame, but that's why Google is working with Samsung to fight Apple, as per the reports say. They're not standing by and saying you guys feel this yourself. They're said they were going to release a fix to all Galaxy Nexuses in the U.S. regardless of carrier. So Sprint, Verizon, whatever, you're both going to get it. And GSM versions, that's actually interesting. I actually am confused about that because if you bought the unlocked phone, you shouldn't get it, I guess, in my opinion. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, so the update will remove local search. We had Joey Kosick asked about...
I don't know that the update will remove local search.
I think it will alter it in a sneaky way. And
yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, I think realistically, this patent will not stand up to scrutiny. I mean, it's seriously a patent on aggregated search from multiple locations displaying the results in the same common interface.
Well, Apple hasn't seemed to have a problem with that with the Google search app
from all over the internet in tons of locations on one common interface. Apple cannot patent universal search like that. That is going to get struck down.
Well, think about this, Daniel. Apple hasn't really had a problem with the Google search app being installed on their MacBooks.
Yeah.
So you're going to sue them for that too?
Yeah. No, and it's not like the activity that is infringing within Android didn't exist within Android before this patent existed.
Android's been doing multiple searches on contacts.
If whatever it is you're patenting existed before you patent it, your patent isn't valid. There's just no way this patent will stand up.
Microsoft should own local search. I mean, you could search Windows 3.1, I would imagine.
Yeah. Basically, Apple's patent covers every search program that's been on any electronic anything ever. And they
did invent the rectangle in the color black, so how is this unreasonable?
You know what?
I mean, I think that Judge Posner made it pretty clear that they're being ridiculous.
And Judge Posner, he needs to become Supreme Court Justice, in my opinion.
Well, he's like 77, so there's not much hope of that.
He's
brilliant, and I'd love to see him there, but nobody's going to nominate a 77.
He said this week that we shouldn't have them.
Yeah, well, he didn't come right out and say we shouldn't have them, but he did raise significant questions about whether or not they do anything at all.
It's open for interpretation, but basically, if they went away, he wouldn't cry.
No. And would probably cheer a little bit.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, exactly. He might cheer a little bit. So, will the update remove local search or alter it? Who knows? But somebody posted on XDA earlier today the IMM76Q update on it looked like maybe a test device because there was a serial number up by the grill on the phone, or the speaker grill. So somebody at least was installing that update. And it was less than a meg. It was like 945 kilobytes. I posted it on Google Plus, and all sorts of people were like, wow, is that Jelly Bean? Well, I don't think Jelly Bean's less than a megabyte, but
there's extreme compression happening there.
I don't know that particular update is their workaround. They also made it pretty clear that they believe that Jelly Bean, just on its own, as it was when they debuted it at I/O, does not infringe on this patent.
Well, you know what? On Jelly Bean, if I type in, I'll use my Instagram example again. If I type in Inst, it comes up with the app as well as the website. So I don't know if how that is. It's definitely different. It looks different than what it did on Ice Cream Sandwich. So I don't know if that little difference is enough to get by or not. But we'll find out soon, because supposedly the Galaxy Nexus returns to the Play Store in a couple days, and when it returns, it's going to have Jelly Bean on it automatically. So, Google, in my opinion, that means Google thinks that they're going to be okay with it, right?
That makes me think that Google is saying that Jelly Bean is not infringing on whatever nonsense it is Apple says that ICX is.
So, we'll find out what happens, I guess, in the next couple of days, and we'll talk about it next week. So let's move on here to Root. Earlier this week, if you follow either Scott or myself or on Google+, you see that I was a bad friend to him. I called him out in the middle of the week and used him as a used him for my own laughter and amusement. I said, Scott, you talk a lot of talk about Android and you know a lot, but you run stock. So let's put root on your phone. And that prompted a lot of discussions. A lot of people had questions saying, you know what, I don't root my phone, and can you guys tell me why I should? Or you know what, I'm a little nervous. If Scott does it, I'll do it. Or can you guys talk about it on the show and tell me a little bit more? And there was a lot of people that were very, very interested about it. So we decided to spend a good portion of the show this week talking about it. And we I think that right now, as we're between Ice Cream Sandwich and Jelly Bean, and all the hype that is about Jelly Bean is making a lot of people root. I know I counted 5 different people that I'm friends with here on Google Plus that haven't rooted up until now. They just this very past week rooted their phone, their Galaxy Nexuses, and put Jelly Bean on it because they wanted to get it now, and they were afraid that their carrier might take too long, or they just couldn't wait. They were anxious. So a lot of this is on a lot of people's minds. So I think. I said we had people actually looking at the questions talking about rooting certain phones earlier, and we'll get to that a little bit. But in general, why do we root? So right now in here we have Dan, who is a kernel dev, so obviously he roots his phone. Francisco, we know he's a dev too. Jeff, maybe not so much anymore. And Scott, we know he doesn't. And Trey, I think Trey does. Me myself, I do, but you know what? When I get the Nexus 7, I don't think I'm going to root it. I'll play that side of the coin because we don't have too many non-rooters in here. So let's see reasons to root. Dan, why would you root your phone? What reasons do you need root access on your phone?
I mean, the primary reason why I would unlock a device and root it is to get rid of whatever operating system it is the carrier and manufacturer put on it. Right, like I'd rather be running CyanogenMod or any number of other ROMs. Once I've done that, though, in terms of maintaining root, there's very little that I actually need it for on a day-to-day basis.
Why do you need root besides developing?
I mean, development stuff I use a lot more root access applications, obviously.
Well, let's think of, let's put yourself in the shoes of an average user. I mean, you can still tie some development stuff to it, but just kind of along those lines, I would say.
I think rooting isn't just about installing a new ROM. It's to be in control of your phone. You want to control what you do, what happens. When I buy a device, I don't want 50 applications, 100 applications there. I want to delete everything, and I want to use what I want, not what the carrier wants, not what Samsung wants. I want to be in control. I think that's what root is about. Then I can install another ROM, a kernel, whatever I want, but I think that's having control.
It's your device. You paid hard cash for it.
Yes. And a few days ago, Adam Altler released a nice video on XDA TV, and we don't lose our warranty when rooting our devices. We are just changing a simple ID to the SU binary. Nothing else changes besides that. So people are afraid that they will lose their warranty, but that's just false. That's just mind controlling from Samsung or whatever. That's bullshit. Sorry for the language, but it's bullshit.
So Jeff, I know you used to be really big in the root world, and I don't think so much anymore. Do you run your phone as a root user right now?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was the operating systems that coming from the carriers like Sense 2.0 or whatever were absolutely terrible. And to be honest, I haven't been rooted for over a year now. I'll root, I'll de-bloat my phone, and I will remove root. So I don't need root on my phone. I've never been kernel flashing and doing all sorts of stuff. I generally go stock, deep loaded. Aside from when I was heavily into my UI on the phone back in the Froyo and Gingerbread days. But since ICS, I haven't really found the need to root.
Now, Scott, the whole reason that we started this discussion, besides the fact
you want to continue on to Trey?
No, it's okay, man.
Okay.
That's actually a good point. Trey is a root user. Let's hear reasons, Trey, why you root your phone.
Mostly because I am still quite well, I don't know. I won't say probably, but possibly the biggest fan of MIUI in this hangout at the moment, and I have been ever since Jeff pretty much 100% blindly ported the Milestone GSM ROM to the CDMA Motorola Droid, and everything was working except for data, and that was just like something that he forgot, pretty much. So yeah, that was pretty cool. He did it in like an hour and a half or something over IRC. But yeah, the reason I need root is because I want the control that ROM gives, mostly. The ability to completely theme the entire system in like 20 seconds. Sense kind of does that, as far as I know, but I mean, the themes are kind of limited. Don't they have like that slate theme or whatever, and then
It changes some colors around.
Yeah.
It's nothing like MIUI themes. So yeah, if you want complete customization, yeah. So
yeah, and that's pretty much why. I mean, once I'm in the system, I'm pretty much with Dan over there. There's not really much that I need it for. On my Galaxy Nexus, when I turn it on, I flash a kernel, and I don't flash a kernel to overclock. The reason I flash a kernel on the Galaxy Nexus is because I find the whites too warm. So I need a kernel to tweak the color. And I do that through terminal, and I need root to do that, to change kernel values and stuff. But I mean, that's developer type stuff that the average user doesn't care about.
exactly.
And so
The
the only reason for root that's justified for me is that ROM.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're kind of focusing on a lot of the more or less geekier reasons to root, but there are some legitimate consumer reasons to do it.
So let me say some, in my opinion, some general consumer reasons to root, and then we'll talk to the user that is one of these people doesn't look like the other type situation here, because we're all rooters except for Scott. So carrier bloat, we all touched base on that. People were commenting, mentioning that in comments. We want to get rid of the crap that we don't want, and carriers put that on there in a way that you have to have root. They make it a system app, so you can't get rid of it unless you're a root user.
You can, in ICS and above, you can disable most apps, but there are still some apps that you cannot disable. And like, I was really excited when I got the 1S that, it's ice cream sandwich, it's got Sense, I can just disable the crap that I don't want. But I found that there were a few apps that I just could not get rid of, and it annoyed me.
Sometimes it's not even just about the bloatware, though. Sometimes having certain applications installed on your system partition is bad for device function.
Well,
a friend of mine, I rooted her device because Facebook on her Incredible was installed in the system partition, and she's a big Facebook user, and so it just kept eating up more and more space until she ran out of space on that partition. She had tons of available space on her SD card and tons of available space in the data partition, but none of the data was getting stored there because HTC insists on installing that in your system partition.
So wait a minute, it wasn't just in system, it was like actually storing its data in system as well?
Yep.
So back
it was taking up like 52 megabytes of space on the system partition.
That's insane.
All right, so space, right? So being able to take advantage of all the space, which boils down to carriers or OEMs doing things that you don't want or that they shouldn't do. Another major reason to root is a lot of people do it to tether. Carriers charge money to do that, and you know what? Depending on your device, I mean, nowadays, there's apps that do it for free and so forth without root, but some phones don't support that. Some devices don't support it. So you root the device. You can use the built-in Android functionality to tether. You don't have to use a third-party app. You can just do it out of the box.
The carriers are getting smart about that, though. They're doing a lot of user agent sniffing and transparent proxies or whatever. So it's getting a lot harder to bypass the carrier tethering plan.
So what Jeff was saying about user agent sniffing, so if you're tethering to a desktop, a laptop, web pages you're looking at are, the user agent's coming back saying that you're using, Chrome for desktop or Firefox, for desktop, or dear God, IE, something like that. So,
oh my God, did you just say that?
You never know.
I hit that on T-Mobile.
Now
tablet would tether just fine, but my laptop wouldn't.
Now I'm tethering to my Wi-Fi only tablet, right? It's the same user agents. They wouldn't be able to detect that.
Yep.
So I mean, there's still ways around it. I mean, but that is a reason people do it for tethering. But I would say one of the biggest reasons, besides removing bloatware, is that they're tired of waiting for updates. You see ROM communities such as CyanogenMod putting out ICS, for example, for your device 6 months before your carrier puts it out there. And it works maybe 90% or 100%, depending on the device. So they're getting tired of waiting. So they, you say, I want Jelly Bean right now, or I want ICS right now. So there's definite advantages to root where you can update your device before somebody tells you can. And that's probably the main one why I would do it if I was a general user. Jelly Bean's going to be officially out in a week or two. No one really knows for sure. Most people don't know for sure. So
tomorrow would be nice.
So whenever that officially comes out, everyone's going to want it. Well, most people are probably going to have to wait another 6 months. I mean, that's just
more.
So the Verizon Galaxy Nexus
it's
probably
been 8 months since ICS came out, and it's only got 9 or 10% market share.
Slap in the face. If you have like a Samsung tablet, Samsung tablets just started receiving ICS this month. So they're going to be receiving ICS when Jelly Bean's out. I mean, people are going to be upset about that, but you know what? Here in the very near future, you're going to see Jelly Bean ROMs starting to show up for those tablets. So that's an example there of why you want to root, to stay current with new software. But so we all want new software. We want to get rid of carrier bloat. We want to be able to maximize the space on our phone. We want to tether. Besides that, what root apps do I use? I mean, I would use a Wi-Fi sniffer, for Wi-Fi analyzer, for work purposes. I would use that from time to time. So you need root to be able to do that. To do some bad things, we'll say penetration testing, because the apps can be used for other things besides that. But you need root to be able to do mobile penetration testing, such as anti. I've done that, but I've used it for good. Wi-Fi kill, another thing is good or bad depending on which side of the hat you're wearing. But
white hat.
Yeah, exactly. You need root.
You need to be able to test your architecture.
But these are things that techs use. I'm a techie, right? Not everybody does that. So what would a non-user root application, a non-techie user use? Well, you might use ad like I forget what it's called. Man, when I run on my phone, ad
blockers.
Ad blocker. Yeah. We'll just call it that. What do I use? Adaway.
Yes.
So you use an Adaway or an ad blocker app that does exactly what most of us have installed in our browsers nowadays. They remove ads. So if you're browsing the web, it removes the ads from websites. Now, depending on who you are, you might not want that done, because if you develop an app and you put freemium apps in there, which is apps that are free that are ad supported, well, it's going to block those ads too. So you got to support your developers. So each to their own there, depending on what you want to do. But that's a popular reason.
Well, Derek, I think there's an easy way to answer this. What would the average user do with root? All you have to do is think back before you knew what you know now. What did you do the most when you first rooted your phone? And for me, on my Motorola Droid, I was just stupidly happy to overclock the bejesus out of it to like 1.2 gigahertz up from the standard 550. And it was just to tinker with it.
Yeah. But the average user doesn't care about that. They don't care.
But at the time, I was the average user. That's what I'm trying to say.
But nowadays, with ICS and with Jelly Bean, phone UIs have improved so much. Android UIs improved so much. Speed has improved so much that you really don't need to use it to root. Which brings me to Scott. Scott, you are the average user that does not root. Why don't you want to root your Zoom tablet or your Galaxy Nexus?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm the average user, but I really do believe that in order to describe the Android platform to somebody else that is actually going to use the same Android platform that I'm showing them, I actually need to have something that is very easy to understand, very easy to show them. If I were to say that I rooted this, did this, well, you can do this if you do this, they're just going to get very confused, and they're just going to shy away from Android. And they're not going to realize that there are a whole bunch of benefits, but you don't necessarily need to do all of that rooting stuff. And I know with a couple people that I've talked to that it's just overwhelming to talk to people like that. And if a phone ships with it, I think that everything that ships on a phone, if you're able to promote it in a good way and it's beneficial for you, it's very easy for you to be positive about it and have conviction in the Android platform. So, personally, that's why I do it.
There's also nothing more embarrassing than showing someone, your phone with CyanogenMod on it, and you go to show them the camera, and then your phone reboots.
That's
and we all laugh because we've all experienced it.
Yes.
Yeah, look at how awesome my phone is. Oh, crap, hang on.
Yeah, I did that one time.
It's totally awesome, but I broke it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's supposed to happen, I swear.
I went to use NFC in Google Wallet, which you're not supposed to have on Verizon, right? So I went to pay for my food or whatever I bought. It's not really the point. But I went to pay for it. I opened up Google Wallet. I tapped it on there, and it crapped out. I was like, oh, damn it. So I opened it up again, and I did it again, and it didn't work.
Yeah, that happens on stock.
Well, it turns out that the version of the ROM that I was running actually fixed it in the next release, like the next day. But anyways, I sat there 3 or 4 times trying and looked like an idiot. You know what I mean? But,
check this out. Never mind.
So, I want to talk about a common, common misnomer with rooting. People think that rooting, you're breaking the security on your device, and your device is now insecure for the life of the device. Now that really isn't necessarily true. As Jeff pointed out earlier, he roots, he removes or does what he wants to do, and then he removes root, which you can do that. Once you root a phone, it's not like it's completely insecure for the rest of your life. You can take that security back. You can get rid of root. Or if you put a custom ROM on there, like CyanogenMod 9, whenever the stable version ships, they're putting they're disabling root. Now you can re-enable it. Now technically root, it's still rooted. They're disabling app access to root and ADB, which is a developer really only care about that.
I think they have it actually split, so apps are available and
that's
ADB
how it is right now.
available.
But that's right now. Only apps have access to root, but an ADB does not. But whenever supposedly what they announced some time ago is whenever the stable version comes out, it's not just a release candidate or a nightly. Root's going to be disabled, so apps won't even have access to root.
Well,
but
I have a quick nerd question. Are they disabling root access to ADB in the ROM, or are they just like making the boot image secure? Does somebody in the room know that?
It's within the ROM. You can toggle it on and off.
Oh, okay. So it's not a cross.
You get a selection. You can have it be apps only, ADB only, or apps and ADB, or neither.
Oh, that's handy.
Oh, a lot of ROMs that have canned that code are using it as well too. So it's not just.
So it's probably in every other AOSP.
For Jeff, for your purposes, theoretically you could leave root on and only give access to ADB.
Well, I mean, I technically don't want that.
Yeah, that's worse.
When you have a rooted shell, anybody can literally steal all your app databases and
Yeah.
get access to all your email, your contacts, your Google accounts, basically anything. So, I mean, you got to be really careful with root, and especially with ADB. It's quite dangerous.
So, using what Jeff said, you guys out there that are curious about it, you root your phone, disable access to have root having access to ADB, and you'll be fine with that. Or disable root access to everything. Just put the custom ROM on, put CM9 on, and disable root. I mean, really, you could. I don't know, but most, once you root, you can go ahead and uninstall the SU, the super user binary, and you'll be fine.
Well, you have to also be careful with your kernels too, right? If you flash a kernel, the kernel could be insecure, right? So then you can remount system and all this other stuff. So I mean, you just have to kind of be aware of what you're doing. You don't want to give apps that you don't 100% trust root access, because they can do whatever they want once they have that access.
If you don't really know what it was, you don't probably need it.
Yeah.
So I want to take a minute here and just, I actually forgot about it. Michael Rice, the Google Plus user, he was one of the guys that this week said, you know what, I want Jelly Bean right now on my Galaxy Nexus, and I'm not waiting for it. So he rooted his phone for the first time. He is now running Jelly Bean, and he said some of the reasons that he decided to do it was to add functionality for Tasker, for automating apps and different things on your phone. Tasker is a great app if you've never used it. He wanted to allow NFC functionality, such as toggling GPS on and off. He wanted to do backups with Titanium Backup. Now, that's kind of like 6 one way, half dozen the other. You root, and then you can back up. But the most times that you're going to be backing up stuff is because you're going to flash a new ROM or something. In my opinion. So if you don't really need Titanium Backup to back stuff up if you're not constantly deleting stuff.
Well, that's not true.
Such as, then give me an example, because that's the only reason I use it for.
Well, I mean, if you're switching phones, right, you're at level 574 on Angry Birds, right? You don't want to start from scratch on the next one.
Okay. Now,
I mean, that's what bothers me. Like, I get new phones every couple of months, and there's some games that I play, and it's annoying because I don't actually remember to back them up or anything, and then now I have to start over on this game or something.
So reasons Mike didn't want to root his phone, as well as our friend Tiffany Henry a few months ago, when she had asked me to help her root her phone. Once I told her that, well, we're gonna have to wipe it. You're gonna get rid of everything. She went, oh, I'm not doing that. And that's pretty much what Mike said. He didn't want to root his phone because he would have to wipe it. Which, if he would have unlocked the bootloader right away when he first got it, he wouldn't have to deal with that. But not everybody does that. So you have to wipe your phone. Depending, most people store stuff in the cloud nowadays, unless you're in level 574 of Angry Birds. That data isn't stored in the cloud. Yet, I guess. And he said, he was a little intimidated. He was afraid he was going to maybe ruin his phone. But you know what? With the Galaxy Nexus, you have to try very, very, very hard to ruin it. And there's always Odin, which to restore your phone, or Fast Boot, which is from a bootloader, which we don't really need to get into details. But there's multiple ways to get your phone back, from different levels of bricking your phone. I mean, you have to try really hard, in my opinion, to brick that. Even if you flash something that's bad, you can always get back. And they said a lot of the lingo, so basically most of the stuff we've been saying tonight and talking over some people's heads, using, it's kind of daunting. You go to RootsWiki or XDA and you're looking for help. People want you to read everything, which that's the best way to learn is to read. But if you don't know what the hell you're reading, you really need somebody to explain a lot of things to you. So, it's kind of sometimes difficult to get into if you don't have an understanding, but you want to have an understanding. You need to find that nice guy that will sit there and teach you a few things, But
it also varies based on the phone, right? HTC works much different than Samsung.
But yes, exactly. Some devices you look at and they root themselves, and other devices you have to struggle and cry and yell and scream to root. And some they allow different levels of rooting and unlocking, like if you use HTC Dev or or if you use some type of hack to unlock your bootloader, stuff like that. There's all sorts of different levels, which we've talked about before. I think Dan before a few episodes back gave us a nice comprehensive difference between SOF and unlocking and rooting, which, unless somebody has any questions, we don't have to get into that right now. Speaking of questions, do we have any questions about?
William Hawley wanted to know if he should root his Samsung SCMA.
Oh, that's a Samsung Precedent, Galaxy Precedent, and that's not an extremely popular phone.
I've never heard of it.
Is that on one of like the Metro PCS or Cricket carriers or something like that?
Yeah. It's a pay as you go. Yeah.
Well, I think the answer to the question is going to be a pretty generic one that applies to all phones. It really depends on what you want to accomplish. What do you need to do? Is there something that you just cannot do currently?
It seems like his current problem is he has an SD card, but he's running out of room to add any more apps.
Need more information. What is leading him to believe that he doesn't have any more space? Does he just need a larger SD card? Is he running out of system or data space?
Probably data. I would assume that's where apps install on every phone, right?
I mean,
and that's not
system
sarcastic.
apps could be running out the data space on that partition. A lot of I've seen this as a problem with an Android is it will pop up and tell you you're running out of storage space, but it doesn't tell you where you're running out of storage space.
And that's the problem on, like the Incredible. I'll use that as an example. It's the size of the data partition. If you have 16 gigs sitting there in an SD card, but you only have a 500 meg data partition or something.
Also, there's 8 gig of internal storage on that device.
Yeah.
Storage space ought not be a problem. It has plenty built into it.
So,
did anyone ever make a mod to install apps to that 8 gig partition?
I don't think so.
I saw a while ago somebody made a script that.
That would have been easy enough to do with a symlink.
Yeah.
So links can't cross mail points.
So let's talk about the Nexus 7 here. That's a hot tablet that probably a large majority of our viewers and listeners are going to be picking up here in a couple weeks. Do you need to root that? I'm going to get one.
Yes.
Okay. Let's get down the line here. So, Derek, are you going to root the Nexus 7?
Yes, you are.
I'll tell you what, Francisco. I will do exactly what I did with my Galaxy Nexus.
You root it.
I will unlock the bootloader the first time I turn it on, and I will run it for 1 month completely stock, and then I will. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I flashed a different MIUI ROM every single week, and I love stability. So, not saying that MIUI isn't stable, but I love stability. So I want to get a feel for things completely stable before I tinker. So for the first month, I'm going to be completely stock on my Nexus 7, and chances are I can't think of any reasons that I need root on my Nexus 7. I really can't. So chances are 2 months from now, you ask me if I rooted it, I probably will say yes. But I'm going to try my damnedest to not. Because I can't think of a reason why I need to do it.
Why not?
Why? It's already fast as hell. I mean,
but root is not to have your device faster.
Okay, I don't need a tablet UI on it. I don't need to have a Wi-Fi analyzer on it because I'm only going to be using it most likely at home or vacation or something. I'm not going to bring it to work and map out my Wi-Fi network or something. I'm not going to Wi-Fi tether on it because you can't. What else do I use root for? Yeah, I mean, customization. I don't need it. I really don't.
To be in control of our device, to know
I am in control of my device.
No, you are not.
All right, so Francisco, you're in your next 7 if you get one. What about Dan? If you would get one, would you root it?
I really don't know. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of reason to.
I won't.
So we have Jeff won't got one. If you got, we don't have to ask you that. Trey, what would you do if you got one? You would root it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't care. It's gonna get rooted.
So basically, what I'm gathering is chances are if you're a techie, you're rooting it no matter what. The average user, in my opinion, you don't need to touch root on that thing. There's no reason for you to do it.
Well, even Jeff, who pulls root off, is going to put it on initially to do what he needs to do.
Nope.
Right, Jeff?
Why would he? But what does he need to pull off on stock Jelly Bean?
Oh, you're talking about? Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the Nexus 7.
Yeah, there's nothing I need to do that Nexus 7 right out of the bat.
I lost track of what device we were talking about. Sorry.
So we had a question asking about disabling CM9 root and applications that look for it, such as Google Movies and TV and Wallet. I know that apps do exist, such as Super SU, that will hide the binaries, that will allow those apps to function without root. But the question was pertaining to CM9 disabling, and it just blocks access to root. It doesn't hide it. So your device someone.
It does. It does hide it. Those apps like Google Movies and Wallet definitely work if you turn off root in CM9 settings.
Is it like just renaming the binary?
It creates a protected backup and then deletes the binary.
Oh, that's handy.
So I never tried. I was just assuming. So I assumed wrong.
I have tried it. It does work.
I've used Super SU.
I've done it with Super SU, and I've also done it with Rootkeeper and with CM9 settings.
But I haven't done it with the internals. So there you go. I was wrong. So you can do it. Whoever asked that question, I apologize. I didn't see your name. Any other questions about to root, not to root? What happens if you root? Any questions about Jelly Bean, Galaxy Nexus, Google Now? Anything Patent Wars, Boycott Apple? Anything like that we talked about this evening?
I have a Google Now complaint.
Complaint? All right, I love Google Now. Fight, go.
It takes like 3 seconds to show up or something.
Yeah, but so did Google Voice Search.
What are you talking about? All right, so tap from the lock screen right here. I'm tapping on Google Now. Ready? Okay. 1,000, 1,000. All right, so.
Yeah, well, mine.
All right, so let me. Now the lock screen's unlocked, right? So I'm gonna click on it again. And go 1,000, 1,000. 2 seconds, and it's 82 degrees in my house.
Yours is actually running a lot better than mine, so I'm going to blame my problems with the ROM I'm using.
I blame your kernel.
If only there was a kernel dev that made a Jelly Bean kernel dev in the house right now.
It could be the kernel.
I'll make one if you give me a device.
I'm kernel running because Francisco Franco does a hell of a job, and you should run his kernel.
Yeah, I think I will.
You're also on Verizon, which Google. That's technically a port.
Right. Yeah. That's a fantastic point. But Derek is on Verizon as well, so I think mine's a ROM issue.
So I'm going to tell you it's the ROM.
Could be a user error.
Yeah, it's just I'm too amazing for the phone.
Touching it wrong, right? Now,
that's what Steve said.
Trey, let's talk about that real quick. There's probably by now, I think there's like 5 or 6 Verizon Jelly Bean ROMs out there, and I'm going to make at least 1 or 2 people angry saying this. Out of those 4 or 5 or 6, I think there's 6 of them. Only probably 2 of them are good.
Yeah, that's the truth.
That's my opinion, and hate me for it, but only 2 of them are good. And I've talked about it before. The Razor Jelly, I think it's called. That, in my opinion, that's the best one. That's the one I'm.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm on. So.
Oh.
I don't know what's
Definitely operator error.
It's
kernel then.
It's a kernel.
Same ROM, it's kernel.
You running stock kernel?
No, I'm not. I'm running lean kernel for the color control, but
That's what I'm running too. That's what I'm running.
Okay. It's user.
It's definitely user error. You're flicking it wrong, you know. Stuff.
I'm flicking. Oh, that's the second mildly awkward thing you've said. I will be sure to learn how to flick it right.
What?
Flick it good. You know you should.
Derek, can you teach me to flick it correctly?
That's an
Moving on.
You just crossed the line, my friend.
That's in a different hangout. That is not part of Android on air. All right,
Hangout
so
takes on a new meaning as well.
all right, so we don't have any other major questions here. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up this evening. I'd like to thank returning guests Dan, Francisco, and Jeff for joining us, and I'd like to thank Trey for joining us for the first time. It was great to have all you guys here. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And once again, you can subscribe on YouTube to watch these as well at youtube.com/AndroidAuthority, as well as listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, and Boycott Apple. And you can also listen to us on, as of tonight, SoundCloud. So check us out there.
Can I say one last thing before we wrap up?
As long as it's not about flicking Google Now, yeah.
It is not.
Okay.
Inside joke, Jeff, I am not an IT guru.
I don't even know what that means, but all I know is that Jeff is on iMac right now. Boycott Apple. All right, have a good night.
On the Mac.
Night.